Hi, welcome to Jeremy's Tech Channel, and today we're going to explore, can you get the best of both worlds? My name's Jeremy, this channel's about tech, go figure. And today we're going to be taking a look at something that I've been reading about and it's really been intriguing me, and I think it's a good idea. So we're going to experiment with this. We're going to put it on a virtual machine, run through it and see if it's something that we can use. I have a couple of use cases for it, so I want to try it out, and it might be something that you might appreciate and want to do yourself. It essentially revolves around taking Debian, a very stable Linux distribution that has been around a long time, one of the granddaddies, if you will, getting a desktop environment, preferably a lightweight one, and then using Flatpaks to install all your applications, essentially using Debian as your base system, and then using Flatpaks for all your applications. And there are some real advantages to this that I think I want to see if it would work. This isn't a new idea, but it does intrigue me, and there's a couple of applications that I would want to use, and so we're going to walk through it today with you. One application is for my wife's computer. She uses Ubuntu on her computer right now, and it works fine, but I want something that is even more stable on the base system for her, and Debian will definitely do that. And yes, Ubuntu is generally a stable system, but a lot of bugs have been worked out by the time it gets to Debian stable. So that's something that interests me. Two, having a lightweight desktop environment will help the performance for her computer. It was a cheap computer that I bought on Amazon, and I think this might be something that could work. Today, we're going to be using LXQT for her desktop environment, or for this experiment desktop environment. And thirdly, we'll install Flatpaks, and this will provide nice up-to-date packages and applications. For this experiment, we have a couple of baselines that we have to do. There will be some initial setup that we'll have to go in and address in the baseline of the operating system. But after that, we want to try to only use Flatpaks and maybe an app image. Essentially use containers for our applications and leave our base system alone as much as possible. Two, that means removing some things that are already pre-installed by Debian. For instance, LibreOffice. I'm going to go ahead and remove LibreOffice and install the Flatpak version to just try to keep this as clean as possible. I'm going to do the best I can with that. The reason why I'm doing this will hopefully help keep you out of dependency hell if you've ever had to deal with that, and give us a nice, trusted system to work on. I was working on a bit on an Arch-based system, and there's a lot of wonderful things about Arch, but when I was using an application DaVinci Resolve and installing things, it started to cause some dependency issues with some other applications, and it was this thing, and I had to create a folder for this to look for this on only this application, to look for these libraries and over here, and it just got really just cumbersome for me. This is a pretty cool option that we might want to look at today. Another note for this baseline, you may have heard about something called an immutable Linux distribution. If you haven't heard about what an immutable Linux distribution is, it's simply a distribution that has an read-only core system. It doesn't allow you to touch the core system. And there's some advantage to that. And an example of an immutable Linux distribution is Fedora Silverblue. If you want to check that out, Google it up, read more about it if that is something you might be more interested in. But this still gives us, if we have to work through with the base system, we can if we need to. So that is something of note. We're not trying to make this experiment of this install to be an immutable distro by any means, but it gives you an understanding of what we're trying to achieve here. Nice, stable system, lightweight desktop environment for performance, and applications such as Flatpaks to be able to use. This should give us a fast system that we can hopefully depend on for a long time. There are two main downsides to this that you need to consider. One is it's what comes with Debian stable right now. I think we're in Debian 12.5 is an older Linux kernel, which is not an old Linux kernel. Most devices will work with it. But if you have a brand new cutting edge laptop or desktop, this may not be the best option for you. And number two, the desktop environments are going to be a couple of versions back. There are some advantages to this too. That means that these desktop environments have been tested tested and tested, and there's going to be very little bugs with the version that you get. But the downside is if you want some new features, or for instance, KDE Plasma 6 came out recently, you won't have that until it finally rolls out for Debian Stable. If you can wait, great. If you can't, this may not be for you. So now let's install Debian. Let's get Flatpak set up, and let's see if I can find everything that I would need for myself or my wife to use applications in FlatHub to make this work for us. So I'm not going to walk through doing the install process, but you do have a couple of options for Debian. You just go to their website. It's not the most intuitive website, but it definitely gives you everything you need. I found a live environment ISO with LXQT already set up with Debian, so I'm going to go ahead and use this one. I'm just going to install. They have the containerized installer, which is a nice user-friendly installer. Once I get this installed, we'll start diving in and setting up Flatpaks and checking out LXQT. Okay, so now we've installed Debian 12, and this is the LXQT desktop environment. I chose this environment for its lightweight nature, its simple design, and it's just going to get out of the way. And it doesn't matter to me having the latest and greatest here and there. So it's nice. It has a couple of little cool features that I like. Even these little down here on the bottom right where it says CNS, it's just, it lets you know if your num lock is on or your caps lock is on. And I know it's silly, but that's a nice little thing that I can quickly look at. And it's got basically nice features for me to set up and work with. So here is the system I just pulled up for you to see. The kernel is 6.1 if that matters to you. If you're unsure if you need that kernel or a newer kernel or whatever, just install the live environment, check everything, make sure it works for you. For me, in this environment, for this experiment, everything is working fine. My network works, keyboard works, mouse works, recognizes my drives, all of those kinds of things that lets you know. But this is Debian 12 Bookworm. I believe it's 12.5. As you can see, there's not much memory being used at all. And so this is a nice lightweight system in the modern times. What I need to do is remove a bunch of stuff. In LXQT, you've got a simple menu application search over here. I know they probably still have the Synaptic Package Manager. So my first job is going to be in this experiment, we're just going to have the Debian base system. So as much other applications that Debian includes in this version, I'm going to remove and try to replace it with what I need. If I don't need it, I won't install a Flatpak version. I'm going to try to use as many Flatpaks as I can. Okay, for this experiment to work. Over here on the menu, I'm going to go through and scroll each one of these and see what I need to remove. And some of them I won't be able to remove until I get a couple things. For instance, I'm going to need Firefox to run a couple of these steps, specifically checking a couple things with FlatHub before I dive in. But I'm going to start removing some of these things. And by the way, one of the greatest names for a file manager in the world is this one right here for LXQT. And it honestly is a great file manager. This is PCManFM-Qt or -Qt, however you want to say it, Qt or Qt. And it really is a great file manager and simple. I love this little tapped way to get back and forth. The way it's laid out for me and my eyes is very natural. Let's go ahead and I'm going to search for LibreOffice. I'm doing it through the Synaptic Package Manager. For anyone who's not used to using the terminal, this might be a great way for you to see what you need to remove. I'm going to go ahead and mark some of these as removal, and I'm going to mark as complete removal. You see all of these right here. They're all going to be marked for removal. We'll make sure they're all removed. This is a big package. Most of the time, you're not going to be doing this much. And then I'm going to click apply. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through here and uninstall what I think I can. There won't be much for me to uninstall. I'm going to open up this web browser and go to flathub.org, where you can see all the Flatpaks you can use or need right here. If I want to install Firefox or any other web browser, I can go here. I can also check the version. The version here is 126.0.1 on Flatpak, and the version currently installed with the Debian package it's 1.15.7. And the beauty of installing something through a container is you only give it access to the system as little or as much as you want to. The point is to use as little of your system as need be. For instance, maybe an application like Blender might need access to your GPU, and so you would need to give it access to that. But it's very simple, and I'll show you how to do that once we get this system set up. But I'm going to look for MPV because it is a nice little video player, and there is a Flatpak version. So I'm going to remove the deb package. A quick note as I'm removing some of these things. If you're unsure about something, don't remove it. For instance, I don't want to remove this volume control. This is one of the tools that I can use. I don't want to remove it, nor do I care about it being the most recent package. So I'm not going to remove that. Don't just go through and find literally everything and just remove it without thinking it through. This was actually a very minimal install in my book. It was not very bloated at all. And all the tools that they gave, all the software applications that they gave, seemed to have a specific purpose and use case. So I'm very glad they added those. So now that I've cleaned up what applications I'm not going to use, left tools and preferences and some settings that Debian already had on here on the system, now it's time for me to run an update, and then I will start to install and set up Flatpak. All right, so now we're going to get Flatpak set up and ready to go. It's going to be some simple command line stuff. If using the command line is scary for you, don't worry. Flatpak.org does have a simple guide to install Flatpak on Debian through the command line. It's flatpak.org/setup/Debian right there. And you can even copy and paste if you need to copy and paste these commands right into your terminal. And it's as simple as that. Once we've installed Flatpak, we need to be able to access those Flatpaks. We want a graphical way to access the Flatpaks. And although the Synaptic Package Manager is a wonderful tool to use, it doesn't give too much information. If you want some pictures or previews or something like that to kind of help you understand what you're installing. And so it gives us, I want to install the Discover Store, which is a KDE software center. And it allows for us to install FlatHub and our Debian packages if we needed to install or update through that. It might be just an easy way to do it. There is nothing configured for the Discover Center yet, which we will do here in just a second, but we need to add the backend that allows for us to access FlatHub on the Discover Center. If you choose something like GNOME, they have the GNOME Software Center, and they also have, if you look here, there is this Flatpak plugin for the GNOME software plugin right here. But since we're using the Plasma Discover, we're going to use this one here. We're just going to copy and paste it. It's fine to do so. Paste it. Okay, now that we have that backend, we need to add the FlatHub repository. And so you can do it here, copy and paste this command, or you can do it within the Discover Store. So we'll pull this up here. You notice some things populated, but let's go to settings. And you see this Flatpak here. We can add FlatHub. By the way, with LXQT, all you have to do is drag an icon over here if you want a shortcut. Very easy. So if I search Blender, you can see here they've got 2 installs of Blender. Which one do I choose? One is labeled here Debian GNU Linux 12 Bookworm, and one is not, and this is the Flatpak. We set in our settings that Flatpak is the default source, by the way. So if there's both a package from Debian and Flatpak, you'll have to choose the Flatpak one. And if it doesn't have an explicit description, this is what you want. So let's quickly check Blender. This is the first time it's loading up here on this computer. And this is a virtual machine, so this is pretty cool. The version here about Blender, you're looking at 4.1.1, and the Blender version in Debian is in the 3s as far as major version is one major version back, which could work for you in a lot of ways. But specifically in creative spaces and creative applications, having the latest and greatest is more than just some cool thing. A lot of times there's some features or some bug fixes that can save you time and can help you out. And so it's nice to be able to have that. We've got to make sure we have specific things to make this work for me and or my wife. So one of the major tools we need to manage our Flatpaks is Flat Seal. So you can see that here, Flat Seal, manage Flatpak permissions. And I'm going to go ahead and install it. Flat Seal gives you the ability to give or take away each application access to certain parts of your system. So let's say this GPU acceleration wasn't on, you could turn it on, give it access to certain file systems or libraries, set up the environment. There's a lot you can do within this, and I really do suggest installing Flat Seal to manage some applications. If you have some weirdness, this is where you can go. Applications we have to install. I want to install another web browser. She uses Chrome all the time, and I'd like her to maybe move to something like Brave. So we're going to install Brave. I also need to install OBS. I need a digital audio workstation. I need to be able to edit videos. So I'm going to look kind of combination. What all tools do I need? I'm going to install GIMP. I use that fairly regularly. I'm going to install OBS for sure. One of the challenges that I thought I might have is I use OBS a lot. And a lot of times if you have plugins or specific things that you need, if it's in a Flatpak, you may not have access to those plugins. But here, there is a FlatHub install. You just find it here and you're ready to go. So even a plugin for me, I'm going to be able to use OBS by Flatpak. Or they give you can install manually via zip file if you have the local install, but they really suggest you use the Flatpak, so that's nice. One thing of note as well, if you're a gamer and you install the Flatpak for Steam, you want your controller to work, there's a potential issue that you might have. And there is on GitHub, you can go and see, you can install some rules to make sure that it is able to see those input devices as well. Flat Seal allows you to open up the dbus system with a check, but that's not the most safe way to do that. So it's better to give some instructions. So that is a little quirky if you use Steam. For me and my wife in our scenario here in this experiment today, that's not going to be a problem for us. We don't do Steam. Remember, the packages that you've got here are typically larger because they include everything that they need to be able to run. So the Debian package for GIMP may be a much smaller package than the package for Flatpak. Another thing, I've used KDE recently and used the newer Discover store, and there is some nice improvements with that KDE store. But in this scenario, I am willing to wait on some of those nice features. And as far as OBS goes, I do want you to see, I searched, you can go in the terminal and you can type Flatpak install OBS, and then it looks for matches in the FlatHub system. Some of these are specifically a different program altogether, like Obsidian. But some of them are plugins that you can use, and they're already set up in FlatHub for you to use. And this really means the functionality for using a program like OBS and all the things you need and access to makes it easier to use this Flatpak version. And I'm really happy about that. One of the ways you can install Flatpaks, you don't want to use the Discover Store or the GNOME Software Center. You can just install through the command line. If you want to install the Brave web browser, you would just type Flatpak install Brave, and then it would look for matches. Looks like there's one match. And is this the reference you want to use? Yes, this is. So I'll hit yes. It'll download and install the system. So now I've installed the Brave web browser. That's a Flatpak. Super easy. If you need to update your Flatpaks, Flatpak update. It'll look for updates. There's nothing to do. Cool. You'll update it here. Here's a Flatpak of GIMP. It always takes this long on the first go of installs with GIMP, but just like you're used to, and it's the most recent version, after that first time, it'll boot up super quick, and now you have access to your GIMP. I can also install alternative Office solutions. My wife uses Google Docs. I like using LibreOffice, but if I wanted to use only Office, I can use that, or I can use LibreOffice and install it here and replace it. So after working with this a couple hours, getting it set up, do I think it's something that I need to continue to explore? This experiment is interesting, and I think it's got some validity. Another downside that I noticed that could be a problem is because of the size of each Flatpak application, the more you've got, if you're going to be running a lot of updates and you have a slow internet connection, it's going to take a while to update. It will update, but that's something you should consider with this. The other is, like I mentioned, with plugins or input methods, using FlatSeal might be able to plug in the gaps, or maybe there's a community building Flatpaks to plug in, like on OBS, and that's there. But other than that, I was able to do and use pretty much everything. I'm going to sit and use this on this experiment on this device and then maybe put it on my wife's computer. Do I think this is a valid option to use for a stable system, up-to-date packages with a lightweight desktop environment? I definitely think it's great. Do I think it's the best of both worlds? Mostly, yeah. Like I mentioned, some of the little quirks here, maybe a newer kernel, maybe you need this certain plugin or a certain way to access that Flatpak and it's not going to do it. Maybe you've got a slow internet connection. But other than that, you should be able to do this and it worked great. I really think it's a cool idea. I'm going to continue to work with this experiment. I may fill you in here after a couple weeks or a month and see where we're at with it. See if I go ahead and put it on bare metal, but I'm going to keep messing with this and see if it's something that might be something for me. Is it something for you? Do you like this idea? Do you think this is a crazy idea? Do you think it doesn't matter? Is there a distribution that's already set up this way that I didn't know about? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for joining me today. Let's continue to do this Linux thing, and I'll see you next time.